we have Justin Bodus with us today,
Just
Bodus.
Bodus.
Just Bodus. We have Bodus with us today. He is one of our solution engineers on the strategies group team. He is kind of one of our report gurus, as we like to call him. He's the go-to guy here for reporting. And today we wanted to talk about WIP reporting because that's something that's really important in the construction industry, work in progress reporting. Bodus, do you even know anything about WIP
He's
reporting?
probably never seen a WIP report, right, Bodus?
I maybe seen a few things around the block or two. Someone had to explain what the work in progress means. I'm usually doing work always, so it's just always done. So I've seen my fair share of WIP reports. That's for sure.
Yeah. So obviously every construction company runs by a WIP report of some sort. What are the ways and the flavors you've seen people kind of get to the most important piece of it, right? I think there's basically one number everyone's going for. Acumatica has a ton, but at the end of the day, it's really about that over under, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at a WIP report, doesn't matter if it's your own custom one or the Acumatica's, it looks it looks daunting at first, right? So, and there's a lot of information, and I think we kind of forget at the end of the day, like you mentioned, there's kind of like a one last number at the bottom that over under billing for that forecasted revenue, and so we can correctly project and report our earned revenue, for that piece. So that really becomes a unique, perspective. We always think about, hey, what does that end number mean? And then we kind of work backwards from there. So I see a lot of different, ways to get to that last number.
So I feel like one of the interesting things in the construction industry is a lot of times people get there 4, 5, 6, 7 different ways, and they all have their own flavor of how they want to calculate over under. What is maybe the top 2 examples that you've seen used?
So one of the main things I've seen, one big question that usually typically comes in is just like, how do we even get this thing called percent complete? That is always just this, imaginary number, right? At the end of the day, it's not real. And we just have to figure out how we can get there in a meaningful way that, represents the business model that way. And that can be, multiple ways, right? So the main way that Acumatica thinks about it is a kind of a cost to cost perspective, but there's some other little things about, is a project completed? What happens if my costs go over my budget? And, how can I do that? How can I adjust that and manipulate that number just a little bit that really reflects what's there versus kind of maybe what the accounting department has actually in the system at that specific moment in time.
Yeah, that's always interesting to me. It's like a massive point in every implementation, and I feel like it's something that everyone just wants to do just slightly different, but at the end of the day, that number is still what we're really focused on. So what about projections and using those and calculating that? Is that something you see consistently or just rarely?
So that's something I'm seeing a little bit more and more. So typically, construction companies are going to be kind of use that cost to cost methodology because it's really just easy. Hey, I have my budget and I'm just going to kind of work with it. And then as that company evolves and they really start getting into the details and making sure that they're managing their construction project correctly, we see that cost projections being used. Again, it can seem a little daunting at first, but when we kind of step them through that process, it's hugely effective, right? So the project managers are really getting into their budgets, really managing their project and overseeing that cost. And then we're able to then better project that cost, right? And we're having project managers really get in there. And then it's telling accounting, like, really what is there? Are we really running over? So I see that so many times in a company where they're having a problem, but they're not identifying it for 2, 3, 4 months ahead, too late.
Oh, yeah.
So doing this really, really helps people get manage their costs, and then accounting can really tell the company really what's happening before it's shown on a trial balance, 3, 4, 5 months later. So
gotcha. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I know you've done this 100 times, and you're the guy at our company, right? You're the reporting guy. So
correct.
That's really awesome.
I have a maybe silly question. What is the weirdest way you've seen WIP done? Like, has there ever been a company that's come to you and they just do it completely wrong and you had to kind of tell them tell them they have to do it a different way?
I think there's every single one I've talked to, they've always been just slightly different, or just again that methodology. I think one of the most unique ones I've seen is that people want it completed projects on a WIP to calculate their over under, and that really makes a big question mark and a big flag for me, because right, the whole point of a WIP is to get that over under billing, right, for things that are work in progress, not work completed progress, right?
Yeah.
So some of those like weird and interesting things, because at the end of the day, sometimes WIP is used outside of the WIP in progress, right? It's it's a financial report and it's a operations report. So those are some of the interesting things. Cash flow, we've seen some weird things about, well, what's my true over under on cash, right? Am I financing this project, or am I not financing this project? So we've been able to kind of do and manipulate some of those things in there too. So those ones have been kind of cool to see, but not normal in the work in progress.
Yeah, it's almost like they take the WIP report and like augment it into an entirely separate report, right? Because to your point, it's work that's currently in progress. That's why you need the over under, because when you're complete, you should be 100% billed.
Yeah, and there's so much there. That's the awesome part about having the Acumatica WIP report. And if you actually truly dive into it, there's so much there. So then it just the gears start going for everybody. What else can I add to this, or what else can we do with it? So that's always fun. That's always fun to talk with customers on that.
Cool. All right.
Awesome.
Well, appreciate your time, Bodus. I know you're a busy guy.
No problem.
Thanks for sharing your insights with the world.
Have a great one. Talk soon.
Yeah. Bye, Bodus.
Everybody.
So here we have the project WIP report that Acumatica has, and we've updated some of the parameters to give a little better look at how this is going to be run. So first is we have our from and to periods, giving us an option to give us a set period of cost and revenue. And then we also have our actuals, or everything up to that value. We can run this by cost budget or cost projection. So if we were running our cost projections within the system, we could use those versus the budget ones. So we're just going to run this real quick. And as you can see, this is a pretty lengthy report with lots of columns. To make this a little bit easier, I've exported this to Excel, kind of done a little bit a job to help kind of break this down a little bit more for us. So the first part is going to be our contract amount. That is going to be our revenue budget within Acumatica. And we've got our original. Our budgeted change orders are going to come in for approved only as of the from or the to period. So then when we have our revised budget, it's our revised budget as of the to period. Same goes with our estimated cost. It's going to be our cost budget within Acumatica, giving us a accurate cost budget that is within the system. Now ours is going to be our cost to cost methodology, aka the cost budget. We do have the cost projections in here, so if we were going to be running those, we would be using column R versus our column N in this situation. Then we have our estimated gross profit and percentage. Those are basically based off of our budget versus our two budget columns, cost and revenue. And then moving on from our actuals, which is our column U, and all the way over to the right, we've got our two main columns of costs and two main columns of billings. One is going to be our between periods, and then the other one is going to be our cost to, which is everything up to that 03 columns. Then we also have our budget use and percent complete. So budget use is going to be pretty easy. It's going to be using our cost to period versus what we have in our overall budget, which is this 34, which is why we're at 111%. And in the percent complete, that is kind of using the same formula, but is also then saying do not go over 100%. Then we have our billings, same kind of processes between periods versus everything up to that point. When we come to our recognized revenue, currently Acumatica is using actually our budget percentage, which means that it could go over 100%, which is why in our recognized revenue of $6,700, it is going to be over our overall revised budget of $6,000. Now, again, these are some of the little changes we have customers request where we can change it to our percent complete versus our budget percent used. From there, then we can get our basically over under billings, and now Acumatica has those as separate columns, billings in excess of costs and costs in excess of billings. And from there, we can get our revenue backlog, gross profit backlog, and remaining contracts. So based on what your requirements are, we can get these WIP reports modified and tailored to your needs, and just changing a couple slight formulas or potentially adding columns for that. Thank you.